welcome to Carlie's Couch. Thanks for listening, as always.
If you have not, please sign up for our newsletter on the website, carliescouch.com, and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Carlie's Couch.
Yep, and remember that we are still doing that challenge and the live episode, next episode, I believe. So be sure to go to the site and make sure you sign up for that and get the information that you need to be a part of our live episode as well.
It's the next episode on July 17th. That is the live episode. So yes, please join for that. I'm going to hop right into the topic today because I'm really excited about it. Today we're talking about beauty and body image. And this was inspired by a class that I took in undergrad called Body Image versus Reality, in which you look at issues of body image, pop culture, and cultural standards, and looking at where we actually get these from, how authors and how artists respond to them like over the time and how things change and grow. And I was like, man, like that was like 10 years ago. Ooh. Dang, that made me feel old. That's almost like 10 years ago that I took that class, and so I thought it would be a good like check-in to see how that has even changed since then. So, I'm like, so no, okay, cool. Just gonna keep it moving. So, Lex, what is beautiful to you? Like when I say that, like, what does that mean to you?
When I think of something being beautiful, I think about it being, and I guess we're talking about people, right? Aesthetically pleasing to my eye, have a certain like aura, glow, and presence. It may be confidence about them, but when I think beautiful, I think physical and what I'm seeing.
Okay, can you name a couple of things that are beautiful to you, like that are aesthetically pleasing?
What do you mean?
Like
features I like in a person?
like features that you're looking for, or like what even that means.
Well, just like when you can see it like intent in the way they've put themselves together, like the colors, I like a lot of color in skin and like glistening skin, not looking like a chicken skin. I think it's hard to explain it. I mean, if we were talking about like preferences in a guy and stuff like that, but that's not really what I think about with like beauty. But I think symmetry. Symmetry when the eyes, nose, mouth is symmetric, but not healthy, I would say. To me, I would probably say something is beautiful and it's more pleasing to me if it looks like it's healthy. That's it.
And actually, scientifically, I think that people who have more symmetrical faces, like across the board, are supposed to be more attractive. Like they did like a scientific study, which I think is really cool. I'm the same. I feel like sometimes people just have a certain glow, like they just radiate like light and beauty, and that's such an interesting thing. Confidence is always beautiful. I think vulnerability and like authenticity is really beautiful. People being unapologetically themselves, but like physically, I think confidence, like you can just tell kind of in the way that a person walks or just kind of the vibes that they give off. But I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into like where do we get our constructs and concepts of beauty? Like what is physically beautiful? What is like accepted like in society? Like have you always felt the same way? Like if I would have asked like baby Lex or like high school Lex, like what you find beautiful, has it always been the same?
I don't know, probably not, but I can talk about it in the way that it wasn't a thing to me for a long time. Like there was no idea about this looked good and this didn't per se. My mom, for example, like with me, I never really did makeup or really did much with my hair until maybe like college because my mom didn't really do that stuff and I didn't like go to get my hair done and things like that. So I didn't really, certain things were just not a thing to me. But I've always, like middle school probably and high school, like you have this innate desire, like you want to look attractive. And so for me, I think it was just like the different, my construct was, I guess, what it was in styles at the time, because these are like the years you're in school. So it's kind of going off like where everybody looked the same and all those throwback pictures and stuff like, you know, that our constructs have changed over time because of how we thought. And even, I mean, there's a time where we was talking about African booty scratchers like in elementary school and playground, but like obviously like now I'd be like, that's whack. And I've seen kids like say that's whack. So, you know, it's just different. I think that as we grow up, but I think that that's also totally different from some of the constructs that I know I've seen growing up that maybe I didn't agree with or I did, but you can see like when there's so much colorism and jokes about certain things, like, you know, you can tell what those constructs are.
Do you think social media has impacted the way that we see beauty or the way that these...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think about kids growing up these days, like just seeing all this stuff on social media all the time, because we didn't even get like, I mean, well, Black Planet was around, but like we didn't really get MySpace until like high school, like the very end of high school for me. And it's like they see these people looking perfect all the time. So a lot of times I'll see like younger kids dressed to the nines with makeup and all these things, and I'm like, dang, I didn't even know how to put on eyeliner till like 9th grade.
Yeah, but again, it was just different. It was different times. So for us, it was like certain things that we were doing that was fast, like they didn't really do before them and before them. So it's always like a new thing. Because I think that too, where I see like kids like going to school and they're like face beat and everything, but it's just it is different. What was your original question about like media, how that affects it?
Yeah, like how that affects like these standards.
Social media affects these standards because, or not so much that it affects the standards, but social media affects like beauty in kind of the following ways, in that now you are living in a time where you're kind of expected to always be on, and you're showing everything that you're doing. And so it's like you're never really slipping. So it's kind of this needing to look a certain way all the time, or living up to a perception of looking to a certain way all the time. And then B, it's the fact that there's so much exposure to so many people that it is more competitive in the way of like not really competition, but like you're really seeing other people who are getting certain attention, or, you know, you're seeing what people think is beautiful and who they talk about and who they flock towards. And so you're seeing all of those things, and there can be a lot of comparisons, and, you know, you seeing that also as your standard versus before, when maybe it's just I'm seeing people in my neighborhood and people at school, and like, you know, that's it. So it's not like, you know, I'm seeing all these people in the world and all these makeup YouTubers and all of these different people on these screens who are presenting themselves a certain way, and now that's being, you know, said as that's what's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think, so it's like, where do we get our concepts and constructs? I think back when we were growing up, it was like magazines, like music videos, things
Jet
like
Beauty of the Week.
Exactly,
like
Jet
that.
Beauty, like the covers of like Ebony and things like that. Like you see those people. But then now I think it's social media. Like I think that is like the big thing. That's where a lot of advertisers are flocking to, because that's where everybody is, and you go where everybody is. And it's less that, like, I think because social media is so prevalent and we have access to so many people all around the world, I would argue that like this is like, because of that access, like the standards are probably...
And actually, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the access to so many people, as in somebody looking a different way necessarily is a better thing. I think it's the fact that you want attention from all of these. You have so many people to whom you can get their attention. And so now it's like it's more important to trying to get certain attention, or getting more attention, getting more numbers, things like that.
Definitely that. Also, that having access to people, I was saying standards are probably more like level across, whereas like before we didn't know what people in Argentina were doing necessarily on beauty, but because they might be really popular influence and show up on our feed because of who our friends follow and things like that, like now we have access to that. And so you have a more exposure to other standards of beauty, but they're probably a lot more similar. Do you think that beauty holds like a place or like a power in society with how things are ran, or motivations for things? Like, what do you? I think a better
that
question.
People have to be attractive to have power.
You do?
I think that people have to view people as attractive for them to have perceived power.
Okay.
Of course, there's people, you know, who's really running everything. Somebody,
exactly.
some fat old white man in the back somewhere. But, you know, think about like running for candidacy. That's a real part of it. Like, if you don't look a certain way, you might as well not run.
Man, that was like the first televised presidential debate between whoever, and one of the
Nixon and JFK.
Nixon. I would say Nixon. Nixon was all sweaty, and like people were like, "Nah, we not messing with him." And that was the first televised debate. So imagine what it is now.
Because what we look at, we put all these other like projections onto it. And whether they're valid or not, like a person who is nervous and all of those things may be more sweaty, or who's untrustworthy because or they look like they have something to hide. But he was getting over being sick or something as well. So that is a thing. Like a lot of what we process is what we're seeing.
No, definitely. And that's how we make a lot of judgments, just because of those biases. Have you ever had body image issues?
Can I go back to that about the power? Because one thing about beauty's place and power in society that is something to be upturned is the fact that that's why now there is so much more push to recognize other images of beauty, or things that aren't maybe like a main what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's not like everybody's like main thoughts about what's beautiful. So like narrow noses, or even like being asymmetrical face, or how do you? I don't even know how you say vitiligo.
Oh yeah.
Like things like that. Different like marks on you, or albinoism. Like all these different things. Broader noses. All these different things. There's so much more space now also for positivity around that, and for it to be seen as, hey, these things are beautiful as well. And I have seen many more people embracing like natural hair and all these things, sometimes to the point where now people want to fake to do those things, or fake to be black and fake to have a bigger nose, which is another thing. But that's important though, because like we said, now if we have these certain beauty standards, which is what I was trying to say earlier, now, and you put this person on a podium versus this person, they have a broader nose and shorter hair, then people are automatically are kind of with their standard veer towards a certain thing. And so that's why the more it's put out there as, you know, this is the same as this, or this is more beautiful, or this is just as beautiful, is important, so that people aren't so programmed. Because it's like unconscious kind of.
It is. It's definitely an unconscious bias. And I think just having that representation of seeing somebody who looks like you either be on the cover of a magazine, or be that candidate for president, or for whatever is going on, like being that lead actress in a movie, like having people who look like you, it does wonders for what you think you can do and where you can see yourself. I went to like this social enterprise thing, and they asked all these little girls of color to draw a scientist, and they all drew like crazy looking old white men in a lab. Yeah. But then after they did this STEM program and they learned that they could be scientists, they asked them at the end to draw a scientist, and they ended up drawing people who looked like themselves. They colored their skin brown and made curly hair and did all those things. And so representation is so important. And I love that this new generation is just like earlier you were saying, they're like, nah, that's whack. Like they don't see things the same way. And it kind of helps the older generations and even ours kind of open our eyes to different things, which gives people more perceived power and greater access and exposure.
And it's shifted because even maybe just the generation before us was, whether they would want to admit it or not, was more so about assimilating into looking this way as what the beauty or other kind of standards were, in order to be able to, you know, be in certain spaces. And now I think it is a little bit more so of being who you are in these spaces, and still being able to flourish, and acknowledging that the differences are okay.
Yeah, and I still think across the world, even though we are making a lot of progress, there's still a lot of areas that we're not. Like the Philippines is like one of the top countries in the world that bleaches their skin, because lighter skin is still perceived as more beautiful and more powerful. Like if you're darker skinned, you have housework, you work outside, you do those different things. Like it's still prevalent all over the world. And so I think it really does hold a lot of power in how we view ourselves and beauty in society.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a way to literally maintain a power structure, period, like that. And also China with the like your feet and having to bind your feet, and there's so many different cultures in which there are things like that. Some people can argue with women of color who straighten their hair, or like from the simplest things like that. Like, what are you altering, or why are you altering it? And, you know, like, what's really the answer for that? I mean, a lot of times now people are just like, oh, I just want to do what I want to do, which is fine. But I kind of say that, too, because I thought about the other day as I was straightening my hair. I was like, I wonder what the, like, history of straightening hair is and where it came from, which probably was also, like, Europeans doing it and stuff. But I just wondered, too, like, I bet there was ways that they were flattening it even on the African continent or here, you know, at what point did they start doing things? I know about the lady who created like the relaxer and all of that. But, you know, I just wonder about those things and like, yeah, now it's like we can be more comfortable having your curls out and all of that. And like I said, you know, they want to do that too. But there's still like people, you know, before you go to an interview, like you're going to straighten it, you know, and like why? Yeah. And like kind of having to play the game a little bit or risking not playing it. But it's something that we do still have to think about.
All across the board. Like I saw, I think the Navy, they just made it to where women can have locks. In the Navy where it's not against protocol. And I'm like, dang, like these hairstyles and how people's hair like naturally grows have been demonized for so long.
Those schools that was cutting the kids' hair off or telling them they couldn't come to school.
Or like the ref who cut the kid who was wrestling's hair, like, boy. But all of these things like can definitely cause us to internalize issues and start to change things on ourselves or feel really bad about it. And have you ever struggled with anything like that that you can think of?
I haven't body image. I haven't had like too much body image issues like overall or like as a big deal that was a driving force for me ever. And I've been bigger, smaller, but I've never been like, oh man, this is weird. But yes, I have like, you know, I'm conscious of how my body is when, like, if I take a picture or if I take a picture and I'm like, ooh, that could look like a real regular person, like from the side, and it just goes like this in the ways where, like, no, I don't like that one because it doesn't look, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't look as curvy as you want it to look and stuff like that.
Aesthetically pleasing.
So, yeah, like, there's definitely stuff I'll be like, twist that around, like, turn that, whatever. So stuff like that, sure. But I think even that, it's so interesting how now I'm very conscious, even of, like, smiling and, like, I don't know, just the fact that, like, why do we do some of these things? Like, why are you turning your body like this? Why is everybody's Instagram picture like the same thing? You know what I mean? And like, that is being programmed to what's a pleasing and aesthetic look. So some of those things, sure, I've done, but like, and I do, but it's not like that's been ever a big thing in my life per se, like a driving thing.
That's interesting. I haven't ever thought about like all of those little nuances, but those are definitely body image things.
Oh my! You saying like that looks better than just like answering the shit like this.
Bruh, I must say so. And when I get FaceTime calls, Lex will be like, "Oh God, she's about to be on FaceTime." And I'm like, "Dang, why do I do this angle?" Like
when you do this, like because your hair is longer and it makes you feel better. Hair is important to you. Like those things mean something.
Interesting, and you don't really
notice people take pictures and they do this. You want that little extra length.
Oh,
notice how when you're on doing this on FaceTime, like you bringing attention to that's a thing that's important to you. And so I could tell you those things about yourself based on like how you pose and do things or do your eyebrow or move. But the same with me, right? So it's not like I'm trying to jump on you, but like you know what you think looks good. Like I know, like oh man, this one of my sides of my mouth is like crooked, so I like being, some certain way.
Yeah, we all have our little things. My tail, every time I'm like, oh, she about to take a picture because her eyebrow comes up and she does this little chin thing. Shout out tail. But I've struggled a lot with body image for beauty standards, but also just things that people said, like I said, that I've internalized, like telling me that, oh, your body is this, or you're too big, or you're too small, or you're too muscular, like it's always been too much of something. And like,
but from what, yourself or from for real other people?
Other people for real, like saying things. And so y'all also watch what y'all say to people.
Anybody in my life who like cared about that?
Oh, dog. Bruh, so I know I got a big head. I'm cool with it. But my mom used to cut my hair and I used to have bangs. They were trash, but they were like the flat, long bangs. And I started growing them out because I was like, I don't want bangs anymore. Like I was in 4th or 5th grade. And I was like, nope, I'm taking agency over my hair. And started putting it back in the little butterfly clips. And my aunt literally was like, your forehead's too big for that. And I was like, what? I still grew it out, but it's always been like, really? But now that's not something that affects me as much, and it just is. But even when like I'm losing weight, girl, you getting skinty, you about to disappear. You need to put some meat on those bones. Like all the things that people say. So I would first just say, watch what you're saying to other people. A lot of times it's projection and things coming from either these standards or how you feel about yourself onto other people. But for people who are on the receiving end of that, like don't own those things. Like learn to love you exactly as you are. And if you're not happy with something like weight or hair or whatever, like work on it and be the best version of you that you can.
Yeah, I don't listen to good things people say. So like, I don't think that, and I don't, maybe my family says stuff like, I don't know. Like, they just be like, oh, looking good. I don't know. Nobody says nothing to me.
But I hear a lot. So like one of my really good friends.
Like, not even like my friend. Like, I don't have no girlfriends that say anything.
Like, I also think some of it's cultural because like some of my friends, their parents who are, you know, from the place be like, oh, you're fat. Like, they'll straight up say like, you getting fat and like things like that. Just like telling them. And so I feel like there's a lot of undoing. Like, even if like these things, like if you say something to me, it won't necessarily hurt my feelings, but if it does, like later on, or if I notice I'm working on something because I'm like, oh, I want this to be bigger or smaller or whatever, like just kind of do a self check and make sure you're not internalizing what other people told you is beautiful, and that it's great to work on goals and things for yourself, but make sure it's not just because somebody said something. And I only say that because I've been doing a lot of self checks lately. Like, why is that my goal? And things, especially like around my body.
Yeah, I just thought about something that, I mean, it's not an issue. Like, that sounds like a strong word for me right now because nothing's really an issue. But I have lately been thinking more about, I'm getting older and like I have the little wrinkles like in the corner of my eyes and stuff now, and like putting stuff on your face, or like thinking about that, or being like, dang, I probably shouldn't like ever smoke, or like, you know, like what things are starting to like get old. All the gray hairs. I don't care about gray hair. I think that's kind of cool. But I have like all gray hairs like up in here. But mostly it's like little things like wrinkles, and like I said in the last episode, like blowing your back out and stuff. And like, you know, like getting older is that's kind of a thing where you're starting to be like, ooh, I'm starting to look a little different.
Yeah, it is. I think it's beautiful though. I think people aging, like ageism is very real. It's very real, especially in constructs of beauty. People be like, girl, she's 60, but she looks 25. No, she looks 60, but she's still beautiful.
Right,
let her just be a beautiful 60.
Yeah.
Even though some of them don't look 60, which is fine. But let people be beautiful at whatever age they are. There's nothing wrong with getting older. Like, we worked hard to get here. And I think that that's something that we also learn as we get older. But I've also had people be like, yo, you know, we have that white side of our family. Like, we need to get Botox. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, you got to do it pre-30 because of this. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, but then that's so weird because then you think about people like Jenner and like who got work done in their like teen years. Like, that's crazy to me because you haven't even grown into your body yet.
You don't even know what you look like yet.
You haven't even grown into your body. And I don't know if I care if people buy their stuff versus go to the gym or whatever. But I mean, I think that's different. I think that's kind of a shame to do the most over. I think mostly, especially because it really is like a now thing. Like, it changes over time. Like, eyebrows that were cool changed over time. Body shapes
Thank God.
changed over time. And so this like all this work done and shifting the fat and stuff is like, I don't know how that's gonna be like really looking in like a few years. Yeah, like
I think about that too.
When beauty changes, are you then changing? Like, I think you have to be comfortable with yourself, but I'm not mad at you wanting to look great either. But sometimes it's just too much, and y'all know when it's too much.
Yeah, and I have two qualms with that. One, if you get work done and you love it, I love it. But don't tell people you worked out for it. Because don't be selling workout plans.
That's the issue with social, is that fake stuff.
As a trainer, like that also creates some unrealistic goals for clients, and then they beat themselves up for not doing it. And then that can cause depression and other things. Not to blame you for it, but just like looking at that and just being honest. Like, be unapologetically you. I love it. Yeah, I got this done. And it looks good. Yes, it does. But don't lie about it. So that's the first one. And then, see, I got so hyped on the first one that I don't even remember my second qualm. Nope. I guess I have to come back to it.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of that stuff's also not healthy. And so just kind of jumping on the bandwagon of some of those procedures is like, I don't know if that's also going to look good, period, like in 10 years. So,
oh, that's the other thing. If you're doing the external work, make sure you're doing the internal work too. And that doesn't go just for surgery. That's also if you're working out, if you're eating healthy, like do that internal work and learn to like love yourself for who you are too. Like, I think Viola Davis said, she was like, can you love yourself as you are, like exactly as you are right now? And I was like, man, that's really important, because I feel like a lot of times that's conditional. Like, yeah, I love myself when X, or when I get to Y, or after I do this. And it's like, but you might not ever get there. Not to say that, but you could die. Like, why don't you just spend time loving yourself and working on yourself and getting better? So has there been anything that you've learned like on this journey of like self-love, but also just like understanding beauty constructs and getting older?
I've learned that the natural and the unaltered is more unique. And my friend Shoutout, one of his quotes he has, I have in my notes, like all my friends' quotes. One quote he said that I wrote down for when I do their documentaries is, most people like perfection, but I like art. And I always notice how I hate the pictures that those photographers, like my photographer friends, pick. And they're always the ones that you're like, bruh, like, come on, like, this is messed up. Like, my eyes are crooked over here. But, like, that's the one they like, and those are the real ones. And it's like, well, I don't know, I like this real picture where I'm like, well, let me take this part out and, like, switch this up, versus the ones where you feel, like, more polished up. Or, you know, over time, like, when people, I don't want to say used to, but they still do, and, like, it's just super over airbrush their face and all that kind of stuff, too. And it's like, yo, you look fuzzy. Like, you look
Catfish.
like a honey bun right now instead of, like, a real person. You can't even see your skin. And it's just like thinking about like why you do all that. So I think for me, just along the way, having learned that like it's okay just for it to be like transparent and not necessarily to say like natural as in I'm trying to be anti-makeup or anything like that, but just really what I mean is like transparent and being real about like what you're portraying. And that's adding to it. So again, I'm not even talking about being dressed nice or makeup nice and your hair done, but I mean like, man, you go in and like doctor everything up and like, it's just a lot, and I don't think we should do that. And so, even more recently, like I said before, I've been unlearning the like, what are those little nuances of things? Like, why are you doing that? Like, that's stupid. Why are you like faking laughing to take a picture? Like, just take a picture. if it's not in the moment and nothing's really happening, like for real,
all
like what are you trying to show? What are you showing?
All the fake candids.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're like like a fashion person, you gotta show your fits, whatever, or your business, whatever. Like, I get that stuff too, but it doesn't feel weird at some point. Like everything feels weird to me at some point, which is why I don't have as much desire to like post stuff because it's like, for what?
Yeah, no, that's real.
Why? Like even sometimes when you go to take a selfie, it's like, what the fuck for? Like,
that literally happened to me last night. That literally happened because I was like, man, I really like my outfit. I need a picture. Tried taking them, and I was like, why am I doing this?
Right,
why
am I spending so much time?
Yeah, I literally took I was like, nah, I don't care anymore. And I just came back, was over it, completely over it. I think the vulnerability and the transparency part is beautiful. Just loving yourself as you are and knowing that that's enough and that that's okay. It doesn't have to be whenever you meet these standards or whenever you look like this or whenever you're your idealized version of yourself. Like you being you and loving you, that's enough. And I think that's been my biggest lesson along the way. Like, is it easy? Hell nah. It's hard sometimes. But that's probably been one of the most worthwhile things that I've done for myself. And it like self-love literally changed my life. And it was only starting to unravel my thoughts around beauty and around like worth and my place as a woman and a woman of color, like all these things. Like that's how I've grown a lot in self-love. So that's why I keep tying it back to that. But just stripping back, and also it's funny on the pictures, because I was like looking at some pictures I actually did recently with y'all, and I was like, wow, like that's what I like really look like when I'm not like just cheesing or just doing all these things. And it's kind of cool to see that part stripped away.
Yeah, I always think about like how in the old days in their pictures, they were just straight faced, like, okay, take the picture. And then how it changed over time that in this moment, it needs to be perceived as some emotion. But like, nah, like for what?
And my mom always raised me like, you got to make sure you smile in pictures. So I always smile. And I'm like, why? If I don't feel like smiling. So I guess
But the thing is, if we didn't feel like smiling, you probably just wouldn't be taking a picture. So
yeah. So start asking yourself, why do you do the things that you do? You feel like you got to look perfect every time you answer your FaceTime. Is that how you always look?
Yeah, like maybe over like the last year, it just switched for me, and I think maybe it's more of a me thing. Like probably like if I'm like the person that just shows me how much more I am thinking something else is beautiful and not really what I could just really just show you right now. Like if I had to jump up real quick and brush my hair before I answer the call, like what am I really saying? Like, and so that's caring more about a perception of what you think about me instead of showing you who I really am. And so those types of things have really sunk in over the last year to where now I feel much more myself. I don't feel like I'm jumping over hoops to like prove anything or to be something else or to look a certain way per se, but it's really more about me feeling like myself.
And I think that's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah, feeling comfortable with yourself.
Being comfortable. And also in the thing of a partner, like in having a partner, like if you always look perfect, it's like, have you seen the Miss Maisel show?
The British show?
I don't know, but it's on Hulu or Netflix or something. But anyway, she like every night before she goes to bed, like she goes to bed with her full face of makeup, her hair is done, and then her husband falls asleep, and she wakes up and goes in the bathroom, washes her face, puts her hair up, puts on a mask, and then goes back to sleep, and then wakes up before him, and then gets perfect, and then goes and lays back in bed, and then acts like she wakes up like that. And I feel like that's super OD, but I feel like a lot of us do stuff like that, like little things like
There's
that.
There's different levels of it.
But so just thinking about that and just thinking how you can become more comfortable in your own skin.
Well, recognizing also that, yes, beauty standards do exist. And so it is important that you surround yourself with people who aren't like projecting onto you or aren't, making you get down on yourself. And it's also important that you watch the imagery and the things that you consume because depending on like where you are with your journey, if that's something that you struggle with or not. And then there are things that some people need to recognize as well about certain privileges, whether it's colorism and different things, and understanding like that those things are real too. So just kind of being empathetic and understanding of what things are and your own biases, and watching what you say, I think online too, because there's been times in the past, like years ago, I would like roast people and stuff, and now I'm like, ugh, like. It's crazy to think about like seeing a random person's picture and how we'll like go in on it, but that's like a real person. Like that's a real person. And like people just go in, and it's something to remember that, like Carlie was saying earlier, like that people can have real issues with that, and that's not really a fair thing to do anyway for your own entertainment. Things like that should not be entertainment, I don't think. So it's important to remember. It's different when you're like roasting your friends or like roasting people or actually at a comedy thing or something like that. But like, taking somebody's picture offline and then just going in on it is like, you don't know that person. You don't like, why is that funny? So I think those are kind of thoughts for me about like beauty and where we are now with that.
Yeah, and I think that's a point for a self-check. Like anytime you feel like you got to do that against somebody, it's like, but why? But why? And how would you feel if it was you on the other side?
Which some people can take. I know. So there's the people I know, like they be roasting people, but like everybody knows that they're that person. They get roasted too. But yeah, sometimes it's too much.
And don't get it twisted. I love trolls. Like everybody in my life, including Alexia, are trolls. Like all of y'all fools. And I love that. But it's
that's why she on the episode looking like Arthur today. Arthur Fist. And I say, hey. Yo.
See, I told y'all. But I appreciate that, and it makes me laugh. But it's also, I know they're coming from love most of the time. Arthur Fist, if she wasn't. And that's really what happened to her back.
I know, I'm over here looking like Pickle Rick, so whatever. So I think there's a lot more that could be said about beauty, and I think that there could even be episodes specifically about like imagery and different things as far as body image specifically, and other things. But I think that we kind of just cover the surface a little bit today, just talking about I guess thoughts that you had. Why did you say that this came up? You just kind of reflected back to that.
Well, it's actually perfect. It's going back to so it's actually moving into our shout out. So the teacher of my class, it was called Body Image versus Reality. Her name is Yaisa Mann. She's super dope, but she was my teacher for the class. And she's our shout out today. She is a speaker and an author. She actually wrote a book, Be You, like Y-O-U, Be Beautiful. And she asked me to write an essay in it. And so it's like a series of essays of women of color, like in the health industry, about body image and about learning to love themselves and using that to empower them in their dreams. And so that's available on Amazon. So Be Beautiful. But she actually has a new book coming out, which is why she's our shout out. It's called Restoring You. And it also has a workbook to help your process of inner healing and outward beauty. She is a thought leader, like I said, a speaker. She's a Zumba teacher. She's a university professor. She's a makeup artist. She just does a lot of stuff, but she works specifically with women in health and body image. So her name is Yaisa Mann, and her book is called Restoring You. So that should be dropping soon. So be on the lookout.
That's cool. And then our question of the week this week. Well, before we do the question, I want to remind you to please leave reviews, ratings. We'll get back to reading some of those when you guys leave some more. And also share the podcast with friends. Like literally hit that little share button at the bottom. I don't know what it looks like on Android, but on iPhone it's like a square with an arrow. But send that and like be like, hey, send it to like a girlfriend or to a friend. and share the episodes if there's ever one that you feel is really helpful. We love getting our feedback from listeners about how steps were actionable or how it helped them with something and where they are now. So again, thank you for listening. We appreciate all the engagement. And with our questions of the week, that's something that we answer, but we also want you to think about that and ponder it for yourself as well. When Bree was on a couple of weeks ago, she was like, and I know the question of the week coming, because I'd be like, ooh, trying to think in the car about what would I say. But I want you guys to think about it as well. So
and share your answers with us. Screenshot at Carlie's Couch, Lextopia, CC Fierce on Instagram. Let us know. Like, we want to hear y'all's answers too.
And this week, our question of the week, I'm going to start with you, is what am I irrationally afraid of losing?
Ooh, man, this could be a whole episode. I would say sometimes opportunities. Like if I don't follow through, if I don't do this thing with this person, it's like, man, like I might not get this opportunity. But it's like deep down, I know that what's for me won't miss me if I'm doing the work, which I am. So I feel like that's sometimes irrational. But I also realize that that's transitioning from a mindset of lack to a mindset of abundance. So you always feel like, oh, like there might not be something else. And so I know that that's just part of my path of growth. But I realize it, I think, most with opportunities.
So are you saying that manifests by like you just getting real deep with every opportunity of like really trying to make sure you're on it?
I don't understand your question.
Well, what's the rational, why are you irrational about the opportunities if you're saying like you're doing everything you can do with it?
That's what I'm saying. It's irrational to feel like I'm going to miss out on these things or that it won't happen again. I'm like, oh man, I just missed that whole thing. Like it's not going to happen. Like Carlie, that was one thing. It was one person. But I just noticed it because it's like a transition of mindset for me.
Okay.
What about you?
I would say that I am irrationally afraid of losing my space. Like people get close to me, I like, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. And I just, for some reason, like I'll have spouts of like needing a lot of space, or like I'll just be at home all the time, or like I don't really want to like hang out all the time. But then there is certain people that is, well, but I don't physically see them. Maybe I talk to them more, but even though I don't see them, I feel like there's some people that don't bother me, but then I realize it's because they're even more like that than me. But for people who like to be a little bit more clingy than me, that kind of like, that makes me like nervous a little bit.
And so for you all, what are you irrationally afraid of losing? Screenshot, let us know. Hope y'all have
next time.
a beautiful day.